Well, you know, Fred just came in from the garden. Oh, welcome to Debbie's back porch. And he has some pretty carrots and some collard greens. And I was getting ready to put the collard greens on to cook. And it just dawned on me that there might be, whoops, that was tender, might be somebody who wants to know how to cook fresh collard greens. So I'm going to wash these carrots and put them away. And then I'm going to show you how I fix collard greens. It's really simple, but just in case you see some collard greens on sale and decide you want to try cooking them for the first time, we'll do that. Be right back. Okay, well, these collard greens are fresh from the garden. It's December 5th, I think, 6th. And we're still getting collard greens, just fixing probably the last carrots. There's some cabbage that are forming up into little heads. I hope we don't get a really hard freeze before I get some cabbage. We might. If I get some cabbage, I'll make some more kraut. But so, I'm running cool water, and you might do this 100 different ways. Fill up a pan, fill up a dish pan. This is not a whole lot of collard greens. So, I've really never found a way that works not to wash each individual leaf. You don't have to scrub them, but even collard greens that I've bought in the store that were already packaged up in a little plastic bag had grit, and so I just quickly wash each leaf under a kind of slow spray, because I don't like to bite into collard greens and get a bite of grit. So I'm putting these over here on a clean dish towel. You can put them in a drainer if you have a big enough drainer. Came out of my garden they don't have any. And that's a little limp, but we'll use it anyway. They've not been sprayed with anything. No pesticides. They haven't even been fertilized. I just planted them in August and kind of kept the weeds back and let them grow. Now we've had a couple frost, and they're sweet and good and easy. Some people just chop these up and put them in a pan. I don't. And I'll show you why. Some of the leaves are very large. And these very large leaves have a spine down through here that to me is tough and fibrous, and I really don't want it in my collard greens. Then there are these leaves that are young and tender, and they have, the only tough part is just right here at the edge. So with that, I just cut it off. When you have these with a tough fibrous stem in it, I fold it and just cut right down through there. You have to watch, I have my camera cord here. And that goes to the chickens. But that's really pretty tough, and I don't want to eat it. Unless you think this takes forever, it really doesn't. What I do is put 2 or 3 of the very large ones together. You see. I fold them over at the spine and cut it right down through there. And what's left is the nice tender leaves. And then I chop them. And put them in the pan. I'll do one more like that and then I'll finish these up. So I've got 3 big leaves here. Put them together. And cut the spine out. I'll say again, not everybody takes the spine out. We just don't like that tough, fibrous spine. And then slice them up and put them in the pan. I'll be back when that's done. Okay, well, let's talk just a little bit about what collard greens are. If you are not familiar with them, and technically they're not collard greens. When you have greens, it's generally something that, so when you're differentiating between a root vegetable and its greens, like turnip greens, if you plant turnips, you get turnips, and the top part are called turnip greens. Collards are all green. There's nothing, no root down under there to eat. Collards are in the brassica family, along with cabbage, Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, and kale. They probably most close, and turnip greens, they probably most closely resemble kale. They don't taste a lot like kale. They have a different flavor. And what I'm showing you is a traditional southern way of cooking these. I have had them prepared lightly wilted in oil or lightly wilted in water. I have seen people eat them collard coleslaw, eat them raw. We eat them basically one way, and that's the same way my grandmother cooked them, which is cooked a lot with some kind of meat flavoring them. And so that's what I'm going to show you. These are all washed and cleaned and chopped. The tiniest little leaves I didn't cut, but the big ones I did. This looks like a great big pot full. This is a 5-quart cast iron enameled Dutch oven. It won't be a third full when we're done. So they take up a lot of room. I put some cold water in them. And this is salt pork. Not to be confused with bacon, but you can use bacon. Salt pork is side meat that's been salt cured. You can also use something called fatback, which doesn't have a streak of lean in it. Some people call this streak of lean, if you've heard people talk about streak of lean. So I'm just going to put in enough water to cover them. I'm going to cook them very slow for several hours. And I may have to add a little bit more water, but probably not. So I'm going to put 2 slices of this salt pork in here. You can do this many different ways and still be traditional collard greens. Sometimes, especially if I don't have salt pork, because I don't always have it, I will cook up some bacon, some sausage crumbled up, and then I'll pour both the sausage and its grease in here, already cooked. You can also do this with bacon. You could cook this ahead of time and pour the grease in. What I'm going to do is put 1 tablespoonful of lard, because I keep rendered lard because I make rendered lard. I'm going to put them on in the stove on a medium heat until they start to wilt, and then I'll add salt. I don't add salt at the beginning because in my opinion, salt on vegetables from the beginning like this can make them tough, and we like these cooked very, very tender. So I will come back. Okay, there you go. These are on the stove. Press them down just a little bit and make sure there's enough water to cover them as they wilt. Well, there's a tablespoonful of lard. You can use a little bit of olive oil if that makes you feel better. You'll get a good flavor. You can use a little sunflower oil. You don't have to use the lard. I wouldn't use Crisco or that kind of shortening. Either oil or some lard. Those are both healthier fats. And we're going to cover it up. And when I hear it start to boil, I'm going to come and turn the temperature down low. It's about 2 o'clock. I plan on eating these around 6. I'll show them to you then. It's been cooking for a couple hours, and I'm going to add about a teaspoonful of salt, which I don't generally add until after the greens have wilted. So let's stir it up, cover them back up. And I'll be back. Well, here you have it. Collard greens and cornbread. Of course, you have to have cornbread. And if you'll see, there's plenty of the pot liquor or juice down in there. Now, these are cooked old-fashioned Southern style. You can do collard greens in many different ways. It seems that lately, in the last few years, people have discovered kale. Kale, to me, has a bitterness. A lot of people love kale, but collard greens have all the health benefits of kale. They're in the same family. If you wait until after the first frost to pull them, to pick them and eat them, then they're very, very sweet and mild to the taste. Collard greens are very easy to grow. Just wait until the summer crops are up, drop some seeds in the ground, and keep the weeds away, and they'll grow, they'll get big, and you can pick on them several times from just a few plants. So basically you're talking about a good meal. We'll throw a rib on the plate for pennies, and it's good, it's nutritious. Hope you enjoy them. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. See you again tomorrow.